The place card said Staff Table 3, the same graceful calligraphy as every other name around the room. I stared at it for a few seconds before glancing up at my brother, Nathan, who was grinning like he'd just cracked a brilliant joke. Caterers need someone to chat with, right, Lily? He said, bumping his fiancée Christine with his elbow. She giggled behind her glass of champagne. You know how weddings are, so few seats. We had to make tough calls. I'm your sister, I said softly. And we love you, Christine chimed in, her voice syrupy sweet. But you understand, don't you? Nathan's colleagues from Hartman Industries are sitting with the family. These are really important business ties. The staff table's perfectly nice. You'll be with the wedding planner and the photographer. Creative people like you. Creative people. That's what they'd labeled me for 3 years, ever since I quit my marketing job at 25 to chase what they called a foolish gamble. My parents had stopped asking about my work after year 1. Nathan just introduced me as my sister who's still figuring it out. It's only for dinner, Nathan added quickly. You can mingle once the dancing starts. Don't make this a thing, Lily. It's my wedding day. I picked up the place card and walked toward the back of the ballroom. Staff Table 3 sat near the kitchen doors, miles away from the sweetheart table where Nathan and Christine would preside, from my parents at Table 2 with her family, from any sign that I still belonged among them. The wedding planner, a flustered woman named Stella, blinked as I sat down. Oh, you're actually sitting here? Apparently, I said. That's odd. Usually family, she caught herself and smiled awkwardly. Well, welcome to the chaos table. At least we have good conversation. The photographer, a tattooed guy named Marcus, shook his head. Ouch, that's brutal. What did you do to tick off the groom? Exist mostly, I said, lifting the water glass. The ceremony had been beautiful, Christine radiant, Nathan beaming with pride. I'd sat in the 7th row watching him marry into a family that measured human worth by portfolios and club memberships. The Hartmans, old money, fresh ambition, and a pharmaceutical empire spread across 3 continents. Christine's father, Richard Hartman III, had delivered a speech at the rehearsal dinner, one all about legacy, purpose, and surrounding yourself with excellence. When he spoke those words, his eyes landed squarely on Nathan, who lit up like he'd just been knighted. Not once did anyone glance my way. Dinner service began. From where I sat, I could see Nathan and Christine at the head table, surrounded by their wedding party, his groomsmen from Hartman Industries, her bridesmaids from Yale. Table 1 was reserved for the Hartmans, Richard III, his wife Patricia, Christine's brother Richard IV. Everyone called him Chip, and the formidable matriarch, Eleanor Hartman. Table 2 seated my parents, Christine's aunt and uncle, and 2 of Nathan's college friends who'd gone into finance. Tables 3 through 8 were filled with Nathan's co-workers, Christine's sorority sisters, and the various important guests whose presence confirmed Nathan's growing status. And then there was me, stuck at staff table 3, sawing into a piece of chicken breast while Stella dealt with frantic texts from the florist about a centerpiece crisis. So what do you actually do? Marcus asked, clearly trying to keep the small talk alive. The creative type comment, makes me think artist, designer, maybe business development? Tech sector, I replied simply. Oh yeah, which company? Before I could answer, the lights dimmed. The best man stood with his champagne glass raised, ready for the toasts. He was painfully dull, the kind of corporate humor full of inside jokes about quarterly reports. He told some story about Nathan's dedication that made my brother sound like a machine. Polite laughter fluttered around the ballroom. Next, Christine's maid of honor took the mic, crying as she recounted their sorority memories and Christine's fairy tale path to finding her perfect match. Then, Richard Hartman rose to speak. The room fell silent. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. Family, Richard began, his voice commanding, and friends, tonight we celebrate not just a marriage, but a union of shared values. Christine has chosen a partner who represents everything the Hartman family stands for: ambition, intelligence, and a relentless drive for excellence. Nathan was beaming. Christine dabbed her tears. In my 40 years building Hartman Pharmaceuticals, Richard continued, I've learned that success depends on recognizing talent, surrounding yourself with brilliance, and making strategic decisions that secure the future. He paused, sweeping his gaze across the ballroom. Which brings me to an announcement, he said. 3 months ago, our board of directors made a historic decision. We appointed the youngest member ever to join Hartman Pharmaceuticals' board. At just 28 years old, this individual has already transformed how we think about digital healthcare platforms. My stomach sank. Not here. Their AI diagnostic system is now active across 14 countries. Their telemedicine network reaches more than 2 million patients, and their forward-thinking strategy has placed Hartman Pharmaceuticals firmly at the helm of the digital healthcare revolution. Nathan's grin faltered. Christine's hand froze midair, champagne glass poised. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard announced, his gaze sweeping the crowd before settling on me. Please welcome our newest board director, Dr. Lily Chin. The silence that followed was crushing. Dr. Lily Chin, that was me. I held a PhD in computer science and healthcare informatics from MIT. 3 years earlier, I'd left a marketing job to create Medic, an AI-driven healthcare startup that Richard Hartman himself invested in after witnessing our technology firsthand. Last year, Hartman Pharmaceuticals acquired Medic for $240 million. I'd kept both equity and an executive position. And apparently, though this was news to my family, a seat on the board. Lily, would you stand, please? Richard's voice rang clearly across the ballroom. Stella's jaw dropped. Marcus leaned over and muttered, "Holy shit." I rose slowly. Every eye in the room turned toward staff table 3. Lily's contributions have been groundbreaking, Richard went on. Her platform leverages machine learning to detect illnesses sooner, with greater accuracy and at a lower cost than traditional diagnostics. She's saved lives. She's reshaped medicine. And she's accomplished all of this before her 30th birthday. Christine's champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered against the table. Nathan's face drained of color. When Christine mentioned Nathan's sister, Richard continued, his tone edged with steel. I didn't connect the dots right away. Lily keeps a remarkably low profile. No social media, no public appearances, because she prefers to channel her resources into research rather than image. He stepped down from the head table, moving toward me with deliberate calm. The crowd instinctively made space. But when I reviewed the seating chart yesterday and saw Nathan's sister assigned to the staff table, he said, his expression tightening, I thought there must be a mistake. I asked Christine about Lily's work, and what did she say again? Ah, yes. That Lily was still trying to figure things out. My mother covered her mouth. My father looked as if the air had been knocked out of him. Richard reached table 3 and extended his hand. Dr. Chin, on behalf of Hartman Pharmaceuticals, thank you for joining us tonight, despite the seating arrangement. I took his hand. Mr. Hartman, congratulations on your daughter's wedding. Please, he said, gesturing toward the front, come sit with us at table 1. Eleanor's been eager to meet you. She read your recent piece in the Journal of Medical AI. She thought it was brilliant. I appreciate that, I replied carefully, but I wouldn't want to disrupt the seating plan. It seemed quite deliberate. Richard's smile was razor sharp. I insist. Marcus, Stella, you'll join us too. Any friends of Dr. Chin are honored guests tonight. The walk to table 1 felt unreal. Stella and Marcus trailed behind me, both wide-eyed and speechless. Christine's face collapsed into tears, not the graceful movie scene kind, but raw, swollen, mascara-streaked heartbreak. Nathan sat frozen, his moment of pride dissolving into a public disaster. At table 1, Eleanor Hartman, 83 and sharper than most half her age, stood to greet me with open arms. Dr. Chin, she said warmly, Richard mentioned you might come tonight, but I had no idea you were family. What a wonderful surprise. You two know each other? Christine's voice trembled, barely audible. Eleanor serves on the MIT board, I replied. We've met at a few events. Your dissertation was remarkable, Eleanor said, giving my hand an affectionate pat. Truly groundbreaking work, and I hear its commercial impact has been phenomenal. Meanwhile, Richard was introducing me to the table, explaining why Dr. Lily Chin was, in fact, the evening's most distinguished guest. Chip looked impressed. Patricia looked lost. My parents looked mortified. Lily, my mother, appeared beside me, her smile brittle. Honey, why didn't you tell us? I turned to her calmly. Tell you what, Mom? About my company? I tried. You told me I was wasting my degree. About the acquisition? You hung up on me because you were busy planning Nathan's engagement party. About the board appointment? You haven't answered a single call in 6 weeks. But we didn't know, she stammered. You never asked. My tone stayed even. For 3 years, you've treated my work like some shameful little side project. You've introduced me as our daughter who's still figuring things out. You even sat me with the catering staff at my own brother's wedding. Lily, please, Nathan finally spoke, voice strained. This is a misunderstanding. Christine didn't know. I told Christine exactly what I do, I cut in. At your engagement party. She asked and I told her about Medic, our AI platform, our expansion overseas. She smiled and said, that's nice, then spent 20 minutes describing her imported reception linens. By now, Christine's tears had turned to full sobs. Patricia was trying to soothe her while glaring daggers at me. The truth is, I continued, my voice carrying beyond the table, you all decided that success only counts if it looks a certain way. Corner offices, shiny titles, designer clothes, country clubs, and curated wealth. Because I didn't fit that image, you assumed I was failing. That's not fair, Nathan said weakly. Isn't it? I replied. I took out my phone, opened my banking app, and turned the screen toward him. This is my checking account. That number there, that's what's left after I bought Mom and Dad's house last year and paid off their mortgage, anonymously, through a trust. My father's face drained of color. And this, I said, swiping to another screen, is my investment portfolio. The Hartman Pharmaceuticals stock has been performing exceptionally well, thanks, in part, to our latest product releases. Eleanor watched with open curiosity, while Richard wore a faint, knowing smile. But none of that really matters, does it? I slipped my phone back into my bag because I didn't showcase success the way you expected. I didn't boast. I didn't post. I didn't make you look impressive in front of your friends. So instead, I was given the staff table, brushed off as the creative one, and spent 3 years being treated as the family's letdown. The ballroom had fallen silent. The DJ had stopped mid-song. 200 guests were frozen, watching the chaos unfold. This is the most entertaining wedding I've ever worked, Stella murmured under her breath. Nathan, I said, locking eyes with my brother. I came tonight because you're my brother and I love you. But I'm done apologizing for the stories you've built in your head. I'm done making myself smaller, so you can feel bigger. And I'm done pretending that being dismissed and overlooked is just how family works. I rose to my feet. Richard and Eleanor immediately followed, and Stella and Marcus stood soon after. Mr. and Mrs. Chun, Richard said, addressing my parents. You've raised an extraordinary daughter. It's unfortunate you've spent 3 years failing to notice. Then, turning toward Dr. Chin, he added, shall we move to the terrace? I believe we have some Q4 strategy to discuss, and this room's atmosphere has become rather uncomfortable. As we headed for the exit, I could hear Christine's sobs growing louder, my mother calling my name, and whispers rippling through the crowd like sparks jumping from a flame. Out on the terrace, Eleanor laughed, a bright, wicked sound. That was absolutely glorious. Did you see Patricia's face? Worth every second. I do feel guilty for wrecking their wedding, I admitted. Wrecking? Richard raised an eyebrow. You just gave everyone a story they'll retell for years. They ruined it themselves the second they sat you at the staff table. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, texts from Nathan, my parents, cousins I hadn't heard from in ages, and one from my deputy at MedConnect. Whatever you did, it's gone viral. Tech Twitter's obsessed. Stock's up 6% after hours. Someone recorded it? I asked, stunned. Marcus sheepishly raised his phone. Sorry, habit. I film every wedding. But if it helps, you looked amazing. Come. They not so much. Eleanor was already typing away on her phone. Harvard Business Review wants a statement, something about success without validation as a case study. Should I have my assistant loop in your PR team? I don't have a PR team. Well, you'll need one now, darling. This kind of attention, you can't buy it. She gave my arm a quick pat. Join me for dinner next week. Let's talk about your research expansion. I see huge potential in diagnostic imaging. Richard nodded thoughtfully. And we should discuss your future role. A board seat is only the start with your vision and our infrastructure, he trailed off, already plotting the next move. Through the French doors, I caught sight of Nathan standing alone as Christine wept into her mother's shoulder. My parents were deep in urgent conversation with a stranger I didn't recognize. The wedding that was supposed to mark Nathan's grand moment had turned into a story whispered as a warning, a reminder of what happens when you underestimate the wrong person. My phone buzzed. I let it ring out. Dr. Chin, Richard said when the voicemail played. His voice had shifted, calm but sincere. I understand this is complicated. They're your family. But I want you to know the Hartman family sees your worth. Not just what you bring professionally, but who you are. You'll always have a place at our table. Thank you, I replied, and I meant it. Someone had brought champagne out to the terrace. Eleanor lifted her glass. To Dr. Lily Chin, she declared. May she never again be mistaken for the help. And may her family finally. Mother, Richard cut in, still smiling. Eleanor smirked, amending, to success on your own terms, and to making them regret every assumption they ever made. We toasted to that. Much later, there would be tough talks with Nathan and my parents, tears, apologies, long nights spent untangling words like respect and recognition. Some bonds would mend, others would stay cracked. But that night on the terrace of Nathan's wedding venue, champagne in hand beside a Fortune 500 CEO and MIT board member, as my family's illusions shattered behind me, I felt something I hadn't in years. Freedom. Freedom from their expectations. Freedom from needing their approval. Freedom from being small in their eyes. By morning, Marcus's video would pass 10 million views. Headlines would shout, Tech founder reveals board role after being seated with staff, when your family doesn't know you're worth $80 million. But the best part wasn't the fame or the numbers. It was something quieter, something that would stay with me long after. It was watching Richard Hartman III, the man who'd built an empire on spotting brilliance, look at my family with open disgust and say, how could you not see what was right in front of you? Some questions never get good answers, and some weddings go down in history for all the wrong reasons.